Hey guys, today's story is about a player with main character-itis. This is a throwaway account in case the accused comes across this. One of our players had main character syndrome, and it is getting increasingly frustrating dealing with this guy, and our DM is too new to really properly recognize and deal with it, which isn't his fault, but it's kind of terrible. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of our little group, which is an exciting benchmark, but naturally as time goes on, we only become more and more aware of each other's habits and flaws. Naturally, our group isn't perfect, but I think most of us have done a great job so far speaking up about our concerns and adapting to feedback. One such player, who is the youngest of us, still has a lot that she can improve on, but has shown a lot of growth over the past few months, while another one, who is, admittedly, the reason our group came together in the first place, seems to have no self-awareness about how their playstyle is negatively affecting the group. They have major main character syndrome, and it's recently become more of a concern as our current campaign is drawing to a close, with only a handful of sessions left. The player recently adopted a secondary character, which is a DM-assigned NPC turned PC, putting their first on the back burner for a bit, as 2 other players have done before, just for funsies. However, this new character, who we'll call Sam, caters to all the worst parts of main character syndrome. Sam has a tragic past involving outliving his entire family as a plot-related magical accident had left him immortal, and because of this past, he never got involved with what the rest of us were doing. For example, when we wanted to help decorate a town for a special holiday, he refused and went off alone to sulk, while baiting us to try to get us to follow him and dig into why. Or when we had a slumber party, he went to bed early and listened to his dead kid's music box all night. Every night. While again trying to bait us into eavesdropping and digging into why. Of course, our DM naturally gravitated towards these emotional solo scenes, always giving in to the player's desire for attention, no matter what the rest of us were doing. And just last session, 4 out of 5 of us, plus a major NPC, decided to hang out together and have some fun after our harrowing, plot-related experience of losing our memories of each other. But we got exactly 0 screen time for this interaction, in favor of Mr. Sam McSadpants. And what makes it worse is that Sam is directly related to the BBEG of this campaign. They're immortal brothers with literally hundreds of years of history together, which means that even though this guy has only been our party for about 3 or 4 sessions, which altogether is less than a week in game, and even though the rest of us have spent the last couple of months building up a rapport with the BBEG, absolutely none of that matters, since Sam has a connection that no one will ever be able to contest with. Any scene between the party and the BBEG becomes a personal scene between Sam and the BBEG that the rest of us can't contribute to. And not only this, but the solo scene from the last session comes along and reveals that another major NPC, from my character's backstory no less, literally my best friend, who I came up specially for my character, is also directly related to Sam. And my character wasn't involved in this reveal at all, nor was it ever brought to their attention, so that was fun. But besides this, there have been many instances, both with Sam and his primary character, where Sam's player had interrupted an ongoing scene another player was having with a stupid quip, usually related how he has no place in the conversation. For example, Sonia will be talking to her NPC friend Kendra about this dude Jake, who asked us to get some pancakes for him. And this happened before Sam joined the party, so Sam interrupted with a joke about how he doesn't know what anyone's talking about, and who the heck is Jake, and what's a pancake? Haha, funny, aren't I? Please pay attention to me. Please pay attention to me. It's annoying, frustrating, and incredibly rude. Please kindly shut the heck up and leave the talking to the people who actually do know what's going on, so we can progress this plot. And maybe you could ask your questions later and bond with the other players. But no, you want to wander off and sulk about your tragic backstory again? Screw you too, I guess. This kind of monopoly over the story was pretty okay for me at first, as we started with a smaller group than we have now, and I was a new player and generally not comfortable yet with leading the narrative. But now that we have more players and I have become much more confident in my abilities, Sam's player has not given up any of the floor, which brings me to yet another issue. Sam has no connection to any other PC, and makes no effort to make any connections, even after the issue has been brought to their attention. He has more personal connections with NPCs that he's just met, including NPCs that already have personal connections to the other PCs, than he does with the party that he's been traveling with for almost a week, as evidenced by the scene last session. And Sam, and honestly Sam's player, only ever talk about themselves. It sucks. My newest concern now, as this campaign draws to a close, is the new campaign coming up. Our DM is still in the very early planning stages with only a general idea of the setting's theme and starting hook, and we've been thinking about our next characters over the past few weeks. Sam's player has been by far the most ambitious. Most of us have come up with general ideas with the basis of a character, while our DM finds his footing in the new setting. But Sam's player has almost entirely fleshed out the new character, who we'll call Rose, and it's complete with many of their own world-building ideas. One of these ideas just happens to be the fact that Rose is horribly cursed, and if she dies, a terrifying, continent-destroying evil will be released. Naturally, her character motivation will be breaking the curse, but even before our DM had planned anything concrete, it's just so glaringly obvious that protecting Rose will need to take precedent over almost everything else that the party does. And this isn't how D&D should work. The player themselves is a perfectly nice person, with some excellent improv and roleplay skills, but God, is it going to be hard to keep playing with them if we can't get them to care about the other PCs. How do you even confront someone about this? I'm almost dreading this new campaign. Additionally, I'm not the only player that feels this way, and the issue has been brought to the attention of both the player and the DM at least once before. Although it was pretty gently, as the player did lose a close family member to COVID recently. And as our DM is pretty new still, he's still adapting to dealing with a player like this, so expectations weren't high to begin with. The other players and I have successfully shut down several interruption attempts in the last few sessions, but it's honestly a pretty exhausting way to play, having to be constantly on our toes because of this guy. And obviously, after the introduction of Sam, there's not much the DM could have done about retconning the brother of the BBEG part. But rest assured, the other players and I are planning to speak with both of them more directly about the details surrounding Rose before the new campaign begins. Well guys, I think a lot of this boils down to the DM yet again. The DM could very gently nudge the player, or at least in the new campaign, just not allow the world-ending curse to be a thing. Or that could even be a plot point if the DM wants to go a certain direction and killing Rose in the first session of the campaign and having that evil be released and the campaign being based around them trying to mop it up. But let me know what you guys think. That's the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.